had wonderful Passover Seders. I am Judy Friedman Kadish. I am Director of Americans for a Safe Israel, also known as AFSI. And we're so glad you're here joining with us for another of our educational programs where we try to bring you up to date on what is really happening in the real Israel, not what you see on the media. So today's topic is Israel's War of Independence, 1948 until ? Israelis and their supporters have traditionally referred to the War of Independence as a defensive war to prevent the destruction of the fledgling Jewish state in the face of overwhelming Arab aggression. For decades, Israel has fought and defended herself against an ongoing battle against terrorism. This month, the wave of terror attacks that struck Israel begs the question when we will see Israel, the true independence from, when will Israel see its true independence from its hostile enemies? So discussing this timely topic are Aharon Pulver, Executive Director of the Israel Independence Fund, and Akiva HaCohen, resident of Yitzhar and activist for the land of Israel. So Aharon, the Executive Director of Israel Independence Fund, where I happen to have the honor to serve on the board along with other strong Israel advocates. Aharon always has his fingers on the pulse of what the pressing needs in Israel are. Israel Independence Fund incubates organizations that serve those needs. And many, many, many go on to give great value to the country. I'm not going to list them here because they really, there are so many, but they really do give back terrific value. And one of them, he's working on with Akiva now. Akiva HaCohen is a resident of Yitzhar, where he has built a thriving business from the ground up. What we've seen over the last 10 years, Akiva, has just been amazing. And you now employ about 30 Jewish employees, Jewish workers, I don't want to say men or women. And you were also an activist. Last May, during the war in Gaza, mixed cities like Lod, Akko, Jaffa, and Ramla were also under attack. Arab neighbors turned on their Jewish neighbors. Akiva heard what was going on, and he answered the call. The story continues as they will now describe. I think Akiva will take the beginning. So Akiva, can you let us know what we started seeing in May and what's been going on then and since? And thank you so much for being here, both of you, taking your time out of this wonderful holiday to spend with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Judy, so much for many, many years of friendship. Judy and the FC group have been visiting us for, I think, more than 10 years, and seen us growing, our firm growing. As Judy mentioned, we have a farm here in Yitzhar, a vineyard, blueberries, what's called a hilltop or outpost with today more than 10 families. When Judy first came here, it was maybe one family, thus we were here alone. And FC helped us over the days, many different projects with the synagogue that we built, the tractor that we bought to farm the land, fire roads, now a playroom we're building in the name of our dear Helen that passed away. For us, Judy and FC are our family. So thank you for hosting me here. And yes, just like Judy described, I live in Yitzhar. Yitzhar is pretty far away, actually, from the cities in the central part of Israel. What's called the central part of Israel, actually, because if we pinpoint the map, Yitzhar is pretty much in the center, but what's called the center of Israel, which is like Ramle Lod, which is where the airport is. And I live about an hour away from there, depending on traffic, it could be even more. And everybody knows that there is some type of war going on in what's called, what they call the territories, or behind the green line, or many different terminologies that they use. But nobody actually ever thought what will happen inside what's called the green line, inside those cities. The so-called Palestinians, meaning the Arabs that live in the so-called, again, I use their terminology so everybody knows what we're talking about, the West Bank, etc. We have the army, we have Tzal that takes care of them, and if there are any attacks, they're here to defend us. But the Arabs that live inside these cities, or for example, close to where Aharon lives, Argon could tell you a bit about that, up in the Galil, in the Galilee Mountains. Nobody looks at them as enemies because they are citizens of the state of Israel. So what happened last year was that when these Arabs decided to join the war that was going on surrounding, it started off with the Temple Mount, Har HaBayit, then continued to neighborhoods in East Jerusalem, and then they shot rockets from Gaza. Then these Arabs joined in, and pretty much everybody in Israel was just in shock. They just didn't know how to react. Just within 5 days, I'll just go through a few numbers. Actually, you know what? We'll see, I think, a short video now. Is that okay, Judy?
Yeah, great.
It's a 2-minute video. If anybody has his loudspeakers on very high, so just put them down a bit. So we could see this, and then we'll talk about a bit more. Here, it's a 2-minute video.
היו המון רגעי פחד. ממש פחדתי שמשהו רע יקרה לנו. בדיעבד אני יודעת לסמן נקודות שבהם חשבתי שאנחנו הולכים למות. הרחובות נשרפים, הכל בוער, וזה מרגיש שפשוט כל המציאות נשרפה לי. אני מפחדת להגיע למצב שאני חסרת אונים שוב.
המטרה שלנו היא שהפעם הבאה לא תהיה, ושאם היא תהיה, אנחנו נגיע אליה מוכנים היטב. בשביל זה הקמנו עמותה, עמותת ערי ישראל, שבעצם נועדה לאגד את כל הערים המעורבות ואת כל המקומות בהם יש חיכוך בין יהודים לערבים, ולדחוף את הרשויות ולכוון אותם לעשות את תפקידם כמו שצריך, להגן על יהודים במדינת ישראל, וגם לתת מענה קהילתי איפה שנצרך. בפרעות מאי למדנו שמלחמת העצמאות עוד לא הסתיימה. הסוד הניצחון של עם ישראל במלחמת העצמאות היה הערבות ההדדית. השיתוף הפעולה של יהודים מכל הארץ ומכל העולם שעזרו ליהודים כאן בארץ ישראל. גם היום, כשהבנו שמלחמת העצמאות עוד לא הסתיימה, אנחנו צריכים את העזרה שלכם בהושטת יד, בחיבוק, בעזרה ובמשאבים, שתעזרו לנו להגן על עצמנו.
It's such a touching video. My goodness.
It's real. That's the problem. It's not fiction. It's not Hollywood. These were all real scenarios that took place in 5 days in the cities of Ramle, Lod, Yafo, Akko, and in the Negev and the Galil roads. Just to go into a bit numbers, we're talking about 3 people who were murdered. One in Lod was lynched to death. Second one in Ramle was ran over. And a third one in Akko was burned to death inside a hotel there. Were murdered. dozens of cars, maybe hundreds of cars were burnt. Shuls, synagogues were looted and torched too. And it took the police and the state about 5 days to start reacting because everybody was in shock. I was in Yitzhar the first night, and I saw on news what was going on, and I just couldn't sit in place. That's my character. So the next morning, please send questions to the director here, and then we'll answer them at the end, because I can't really read messages while people are sending me messages. I can't really read them while I'm speaking.
Everybody, please
sorry.
direct your questions to Helene H. Fragman Abramson. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Sorry. So I put out a call. I sent out a text message through WhatsApp to a group of activists that I knew, and I said, whoever wants, I want to organize people or go and volunteer to save the lives of people in Ramle and Lod. That's where we started off. And I sent out my phone number, which was a mistake, because technically my phone collapsed after 3 hours, because hundreds or maybe thousands of people tried to contact me to join this. But Feder Mac, bottom line was that the people who came there actually in Ramle Lod were only about 100 people. That first night, we divided to 2 groups. We thought Ramle was more problematic. We sent about 50 or 70 guys there, and in Lod, I was there alone with about 30 guys. I had no knowledge at all of the neighborhood, and I got a phone number of somebody, and he connected me into this WhatsApp group of all the families. I'll explain a bit more about this neighborhood in a second. And basically, over that night, they were sending us from place to place inside the neighborhood. One family says they're burning a car here, so we run over there. Then we run back to where they're torching a car, and then we save a woman's mikvah, and so on and on, back and forth inside the neighborhood from place to place. Now you need to understand this neighborhood that we were inside. It's called Ramat Eshkol. Anybody know the Ramat Eshkol in Yerushalayim? There's another one in Lod, Ramat Eshkol neighborhood, and they live in these blocks. In each block, you have, let's say, about 20 families. About 15 of them are Arab families, and 5 of them are Jewish families. So they live door to door next to these Arabs, and they were always friendly with them. But these same Arabs that were always friendly with them, one day just turned 180 degrees and became their enemies. So after the first night that we weren't there, most of the families, the Jewish families that lived in this neighborhood, just ran away. So this neighborhood used to be a Jewish neighborhood. Then in the beginning of the 90s, the Shin Bet sent all these the guys that were working with them, and they had to bring them into Israel. So they put them in there, and it turned into an Arab neighborhood step by step. And till the beginning of 2000, then new Jewish families started coming in, what's called in Israel Gerin Torani, Gerin that came in, new Jewish young families that came into this neighborhood, and started opening the shows that were already closed by then, the synagogues. And when we came there were about 75 families living in the neighborhood last year, but most of them had abandoned their homes and ran away. Only about 10 families were left, and also those 10 families were only the men without the women and children. And so those families that were left just guided us through the neighborhood and told us where to go during that night. The next night already people saw what was going on, and that the police weren't taking charge. And by the next night, I think we had about 200 or 300 volunteers coming in. And night after night, more and more people were coming, and whole operations room was built, and sending volunteers from here to there. And like I said, bottom line, it started Sunday night. That was the first riots. Only in the Saturday night or Friday night, between Friday night and Saturday night, the police really actually started taking care of what was going on. So ever since I got really moved. Judy, you said you were moved by the movie. I was moved by what was going on, and these people that I never knew before, I said, I'm not leaving you. Like they're in complete shock. They didn't know what to do. So I've been trying to help them ever since, retrieving their security. People are afraid to live there, and the fact that they know that somebody's taking care of their security gives them the opportunity to continue what the amazing work they're doing there. So after going through and meeting the different cities that we mentioned earlier, Ramle, Lod, Jaffa, Akko, and Natzrat, which is called today Nof HaGalil, we decided to form a organization that will take upon himself to try to retrieve and take care of the security, understanding that the Arabs living in these cities, what's called the Israeli Arabs, see us as, or I don't want to say all of them, but many of them see us as an enemy, and they're there to fight whenever they're called upon against the Jews in these places. And because they're not defined as enemies, so you can't really there's no army that will defend from them. So we understood that on one side we can't be an army, meaning we can't just bring in an army of volunteers and do the defending. This is the job of the state of Israel, meaning we have to find a way how to get the state of Israel, how to get the authorities, how to get the police to do this. On one side, the other side, we saw that we couldn't trust them. So basically, we built a plan that combinates between the different tactics that are needed here, and we work. I'll go through the 5 aspects we work, but and then afterwards you could Aharon will speak a bit, and you could ask questions about this. But first thing is what's obvious is local security, but preventing it ahead of time, putting in surveillance cameras, having drones, keeping track of the incidents, and seeing, we'll get there in a second, that they're taken care of by the authorities, building rapid response teams, we'll get into that in a second again, and many different aspects of local security. Like if any of you know what's going on in the Yishuvim in Yesha, that you have rapid response teams and you have security teams and working together with the army. So the same idea there is working together with the police, because the police know that, understand today that if this happens again, if these riots happen again, so they need our help. So we work together with them on this. So we have our civilian operations room that we're building in each place, that know the different parts of the neighborhoods and the places that need to be defended. And we have senior military officers working with us, building out defense plans in each place, and on whatever else we need in terms of local security. Next thing is working with the authorities on one side, but another side, making sure that they do their work. What do I mean? The authorities, the local authorities, which are the police and the council, are supposed to take care of the security, but again, they need our help. So we are in a daily connection with them. I'll bring an example just from an hour ago. We'll get into that later, but we got intelligence that next Wednesday, at 9:30 p.m. in Lod. The Arabs are planning on a, here, I'll read it so that you could understand how accurate it really is. Yom Revi'i, April 27th, Wednesday, April 27th, Iroa Benosei Al-Aqsa, a event regarding Al-Aqsa, which is Har HaBayit, Temple Mount, in the Mosque of Lod, organized by the Committee of the Arabs of Lod. Okay, so this, for example, we'll get into that in a second, the intelligence that we passed on to the police just now, and we will make sure that the police are getting ready like they are supposed to, because they have many missions, and if nobody's on their back, usually they'll forget some of them. On the other side, we are in a very good connection with them, meaning we work with them on a daily basis to prevent what's going on, and we're in a, not me, but the guys there are, we get, of course, a Shana Tova and Shabbat Shalom from them, and it's not like we're against them, we work together with them. So that's the local authorities, including the council as well. We have awareness, media awareness, PR, that people forget what went on a year ago, and we can't let that happen, because as we see now, and I'll get into that later, the Ramadan brings with it every year the riots, and it's not only the Ramadan. Anything could, this fire could be lit in a second, and people forget, and people don't know, and we need to make sure that everybody, from the citizens up to the government, understand and know what's going on there all the time. And that brings me to the next subject, which is working in the politics inside the Knesset. I'm letting the Knesset members and the ministers and the government know what's going on, because they have so many subjects that they need to take care of. Somebody needs to bring them up to date with what's going on. So we give them reports of what's going on. We bring them to tours and show them, and we try to pass laws and different things that need to be done. And we also use them to put pressure on the police and to do their job as well. Using committees, there's interior minister committee that we use a lot, Mirav Ben Ari, to put pressure on the police, and many others that are, I don't want to get into the names of many Knesset members that were in very good connection from both sides of the political map, because what we care for is the security in this case, and whoever could help us with that, we're happy with him. The last thing is, and I mentioned it earlier, is intelligence and research. Behind the scenes, we monitor the social media of the Arabs. We understand, we build an intelligence report on each one of these neighborhoods. In East Jerusalem, Shimon HaTzadik, for example, or that we saw there that it's Hamas activists being paid to do what's called Sheikh Jarrah in the media. And many different intelligence reports we have, and on daily basis we pass on intelligence, like I said, to the police and to the media, so that people know what's going on. I can't really go into that too much, but trust me, there's a lot going on behind the scenes in that area. Now, what's going on today is that we knew that this Ramadan is coming up. Now, the dates this year are problematic in two ways. One is because Ramadan hits Pesach, Passover. So the Arabs want to prevent the Jews who want to go up to Har HaBayit, to Temple Mount, and because it contradicts the Ramadan, we knew that there would be a fight about this. And the second thing is the last days of the Ramadan, which are the days that the riots started last year, are this year between Yom HaZikaron and Yom HaShoah and Yom Yerushalayim. So that are definitely very problematic days. On the other side, the police are doing a great work this year. The first day that they tried to erupt these riots on Har HaBayit, the police arrested 470 Arabs that were inside the mosque there, a thing that was never done before, even though the minister of the police in Israel today is far left right, left wing. Even so, the police are doing a very good job. And for the past 5 days or a week or so, the Arabs are, people don't know, but they are doing riots, small riots like blocking roads and things like that in the Galil, in a few places in Tzrat, in Kafar Kana, in Taiben, in many places. But the police quiet it very fast, take care of it. So they are doing their work. But everybody knows, like a rocket was fired yesterday from Gaza. Everything could erupt in a second. So we are doing our best to be on to get ready as best that we can. Now, this project that we're doing, we started a organization. We called it Arei Yisrael, the cities of Israel. Aharon and I know for many years. Aharon I know as a person who helps anybody who I believe in and needs his resources, and Aharon has his connections and does his best voluntarily to help these organizations. So he was the first one I called when I understood that we were going to a big project here, and Aharon immediately said, "I'm in." And for the past few months, we're in great connection on almost a daily basis. I just came back from the States on fundraising all over the States for 2 weeks with Aharon's help and Judy and many others. And we're trying to do the work here. Aharon, I'll give you the mic and then afterwards I'm here for questions. Judy, you're muted.
Oh, thank you so much, Akiva. I think you've given us a real picture. And when I said that it was it was not just touching, it was a bracing, disturbing video. And I'm sure it had the same effect on everyone. And the stories that you're telling are just so disturbing and true. Israel is still fighting the war of 48. So Aharon, I'm sure you have a lot of brilliant insights. So please, can you take over?
On that optimistic note, I'd be happy to. Thank you, Judy.
Thank you.
First of all, I want to thank you, Judy, for having me here tonight. There are so many friends online, I can't even begin to say hello to everybody. But it's a real pleasure to see so many old friends from AFSI joining us here this evening. It's also a great honor for me to be here together addressing you with Akiva HaCohen. I've known Akiva for over 10 years, over a decade, and I have rarely seen the highest level of dedication that Akiva constantly demonstrates in all areas, despite the personal dangers to himself. And Akiva is always on the front line for the Jewish people. And it's a great honor to be of any assistance that I could be and that the Israel Independence Fund can be to any initiative that Akiva takes. Israel's war of independence certainly has not ended. Since 1948, we have been consistently struggling for independence in this country. Whether it be frontal confrontations with organized armies in the Sinai Desert or in the Golan Heights, or whether it be with dealing with insurrection in Judea and Samaria, or whether it be with dealing with insurrection in the Galilee, in the Negev, and in Israel's so-called mixed cities. Israel is consistently and constantly struggling for its right to exist. And that situation has not changed. And I do not believe that that situation is going to change in the near future. In fact, in the coming months and in the coming years, we will probably see an exacerbation of the insurrection that we face, both in Judea and Samaria and both within the so-called 1949 armistice lines and within the Green Line. Israel's so-called mixed cities, Yafo, Akko, Lod, Ramle, Upper Nazareth, now called Nofa Galil, Nazareth itself, were not included in the territory that was going to constitute the Jewish state, according to the United Nations 1947 partition proposal. They were not included in the Jewish state, or what was proposed to be the Jewish state, in the partition proposal, because those areas clearly had an Arab majority and were intended to be part of a so-called Arab state. It wasn't even called a Palestinian state at the time because there was no Palestinian Arab identity. It was simply called an Arab state, nameless Arab state. During the Independence War, those areas were liberated by Tzahal and incorporated into the state of Israel. And it's Israel's high level of humanity and high level of Jewish morality in fighting our most implacable enemies that allowed a large Arab population to remain in those towns and cities and in villages throughout the northern Negev and throughout the Galilee within the Jewish state, under the supposition that those Arabs who remained within the territory of Israel as it was constituted according to the armistice lines of 1948 would be loyal citizens. Now, often I'm asked particularly by people in the United States, how is it that Israel doesn't look at its citizens of Arab background as being loyal citizens when Americans have no problem looking at its minority populations as loyal Americans? And my retort to that has to do very much with the laws of Jim Crow and the behavior of African Americans during World War II. During World War II and during the height of Jim Crow, African Americans lined up to fight for the United States of America. They fought and shed blood, despite the fact that they were fighting and shedding blood in a segregated armed force. They did so proudly because they felt it was incumbent upon them to go above and beyond the call of duty in order to protect a country that was clearly persecuting them, in order to win their rights with their own blood. Arab Israelis, for the most part, do not identify with the Jewish state. Now, the vast majority of Arab Israelis have shown themselves to be peaceful neighbors. They have not participated in insurrection and have not openly showed violence and antagonism towards their Jewish neighbors. However, we all know that the street is led by a small minority. Revolution is led by a small minority. And there is, in fact, a revolution going on in Arab life in Israel today. And that revolution is being caused by a number of different factors. Clearly, one of the factors is the Islamification of the Israeli Arab community. 40, 50 years ago, Israeli Arabs were far more secular than religious. Today, the opposite is in fact true. 40, 50 years ago, Israeli Arabs were far more cognizant of Jewish power. That is no longer the case. 40, 50 years ago, Arab Israelis were far more convinced that their own economic benefit lay within the boundaries of showing loyalty to the newly founded Jewish state, and that is no longer the case. All parameters lead us to believe firmly that the pot is boiling and nobody is going to be able to keep the lid on the pot. It can be said that during Bibi Netanyahu's many years of prime ministership, his attitude towards domestic policy was very much keep the lid on the pot. Don't let the pot boil over. But the pot is boiling over now. And unfortunately, we have a government that is uniquely incapable of dealing with the pot when it does boil over, simply because a lot of the people who are going to watch the pot boil over are actually lighting the fire under the pot. We have to find the wherewithal, not only to incubate creative solutions to these challenges, but also to incubate change in the thought process of many people in the Israeli government to understand better how we need to deal with this problem. In the short term, what we need to do is take the very well oiled and very well thought out security parameters that have existed in Jewish communities throughout Judea and Samaria and copy them and use them as an auxiliary security blanket for Jewish communities in the so-called mixed cities, and work together with government agencies, with the police and with Shabak, in order to be able to provide those communities with greater protection. Recently, articles have been appearing in the Israeli press that the IDF and the Israel police and Shabak are finally coming to the conclusion that drastic steps have to be taken in order to plan for increased violence in Israel's mixed cities and increased violence in the Galilee and in the Negev, in addition to the constant danger of insurrection in Judea and Samaria. I'm a little bit surprised that they're so surprised, because anybody who could read even the smallest writing on the wall could have seen that in May 2021, what the future held in store for us. But beyond that, anybody who has any type of knowledge of the Israeli Arab community and any interaction with Israeli Arabs at all, and I, by the way, live in an area in the Galilee which has a 71% Arab majority, all of us up here knew that this was something that was about to happen. And it's been about to boil over for years. And Israel's security apparatus has had years to come to conclusions about how best to deal with the threat. And I'm afraid they have not. I'm afraid they have not. There are times where Israel's fabled security apparatus doesn't really perform the way we would all like it to. And their understanding of this particular issue is just now beginning to improve and just now allowing itself to offer solutions. Having said that, the auxiliary security layers that we propose to provide for those mixed cities by supporting Arei Yisrael will be critical in helping to coordinate on the ground real-time efforts with the police. One of the things that the Israel Independence Fund does and has done ever since our founding in 2007 is to request of our organizations to have a very beneficial symbiotic relationship. So not only is Arei Yisrael working in the mixed cities, but Arei Yisrael is coordinating with other IIF grantees like Adkan in order to provide real-time intelligence services, not only to the communities, but even to the police and Shabak, services that they don't necessarily have. So I would urge you all to consider the depth of the problem. Understand that this is a problem in which Jewish lives are very much at risk. And I would urge you all to generously give so that we can ensure that the auxiliary security layers that we seek to provide are up and running yesterday. because the sooner we're able to provide complete auxiliary security for these communities, the safer they will be, the safer Jewish lives will be, and the safer the state of Israel will be. I don't have to tell you all that any loss of Israeli security in one town, in one village, in one region, is loss of security for the entire state of Israel. Our enemies will astutely discern that we no longer have the will to rule. And when they discern that we no longer have the will to rule, on home turf, we are in extreme danger. I urge you all to go to the Israel Independence Fund website, which is pretty easy to remember. It's hard to forget, actually. It's www.fundisrael.org, and make an online donation today in order to be able to provide Akiva and all the brave young men and women on the ground with the wherewithal to address these issues by providing on the ground real-time security coordination, by ensuring full-time Knesset lobbying efforts in order to inform Knesset members and ministers and government officials that this danger is real and imminent, in order to be able to bring the message to other Israelis to come and volunteer and stand on the front line together with us. All these things are critical. All these things are areas in which you, every one of you, can help us to make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aaron. I just want to add one sentence. I'd like to personally invite each one of you to visit. You could contact me directly through my email or WhatsApp. And please, next time you're in Israel, I'll take you around either to Lod, which is right next to the airport, or obviously you're invited to my house and farm in Yitzhar. So I'm here. Please contact me and I'll love to meet you at the airport or wherever you want and take you around.
And he certainly means it. A very, very, very hospitable and open and generous and warm man. Two of them are sitting with us today, and I'm sure many in the audience. But I thank you for filling us in on this. And I've had a couple of questions about whether this will be available as on our YouTube channel. And yes, they are available on our YouTube channel. If you are signed on to our YouTube channel, you can do it just by getting to www.afc.org/videos. Elaine, do you have some questions?
I have a lot of questions, but the first thing I want to say is I'd like to echo what Lori Kurz had to say, and she writes, I am in awe of what Akiva has done, Yasher Koach, a modern day hero. So I wanted you to hear that before I got to some of the questions. It came in actually before that. I think you might have answered this already, but there are a couple of questions in understanding who was doing the rioting. So I'm going to just put a bunch of questions together, and I hope the audience forgives me for not mentioning everybody's name, but the Arabs who took part in these cities, the question is, were they brought in from elsewhere, or were they limited to those cities? And why did the police, if it was an altercation within a city, why did the police not respond immediately?
Okay, so those are two different questions. The first part is the majority of the Arabs that rioted were local Arabs. There were Arabs that joined them from other villages, from Israeli villages, such as Kfar Qasim, or other places that came to help the local Arabs. But most of the Arabs, very high majority of the Arabs, were local. And the Arabs that were arrested eventually were almost, I think actually all of them were local Arabs. That's the first part. The second part, why didn't the police respond? That's a very difficult question, and I hope somebody has an answer to that. Because somebody in the state of Israel had to ask that question, meaning in the government but I think first of all, in terms of mentality, they were in shock. They were in total shock. They just didn't know what to do with dozens of different places at the same time. Now, take the city of Lod, for example, because that's where I was dealing with security real time. They have just a few dozens of policemen, and these policemen don't even know how to react to terror acts, to things like this, like the border police do know how to do it. They don't have border police, which are the police unit who are in charge of taking care of such things. This unit, the border police, what's so-called, what their name is, they are in Jerusalem, and they are in Judah and Shomron, Judea and Samaria. They are not in these places. So the policemen there, they're policemen that are in charge of basically giving tickets to cars and things like that. They are not professional policemen that knew how to do this job. And also, they're just a small amount. The commander of police said, listen, I only have 25 policemen. What do you want me to do with so many different things happening?
Okay. I hope you gave him a real good answer for what do you think I'm supposed to do. But there were more questions that follow up on that. And one of them comes from Mark Karoff. And he asks if there are efforts made to encourage the Israeli government to revoke the Waqf's custodial authority over the Temple Mount for being complicit in Arab violence there. And I would also add to that, because it's really part of the same issue, if there's any ability to reject the citizenship or take away the citizenship of Arabs who are complicit also in these kinds of riots.
Aharon, you want to answer that? You're muted. Aharon, you're muted.
I'm asking you to unmute.
In terms of in response to the question about Har HaBayit, the Hashemite Waqf is unofficially recognized by the Israeli government as being the custodian of the Temple Mount. That has not changed. According to the Israel-Jordanian peace accords, the Hashemite Waqf really has no official status on the Temple Mount. In fact, the only recognition of any type of Jordanian participation in anything to do with holy sites in Jerusalem is a joint declaration allowing the Hashemite court special involvement, which is undefined, in ensuring religious freedom throughout Jerusalem's holy sites. That certainly is not something that happens on the Temple Mount. Religious freedom is not ensured on the Temple Mount because Jews are continually discriminated on the Temple Mount. So the Hashemite Waqf continues to hold the keys, which were given to it on the first Shabbat after the Six-Day War by Moshe Dayan, and it continues to hold those keys, and their position on the Temple Mount is unfortunately respected by the Israeli government and Israeli authorities. The constant theme that so-called Al-Aqsa is in danger, which is constantly used as an Arab meme in order to incite violence against Jews, has been a lie that has been going around for over 110 years and hasn't changed at all. So I hope that, please God, one day that situation will in fact change, although I certainly don't see any change happening under the present government.
I'd like to add to that, Aaron, that the biggest insiders of the riots in 2021 and the riots coming now in 2022 are the sheikhs and leaders of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, Omar Kiswani and Ikram Masabri. These are people that run the mosque on the Temple Mount. Inside, they run what's called the mosque itself in Al-Aqsa, and they are the biggest insiders. So it's even more than what you were saying in that way. Regarding the second question about there is a law that is trying to be passed, I know, by a few Knesset members to take the citizenship from Arabs that have done terror acts. But I don't think that anybody there really intends to place these riots as terror acts. When they say terror acts, they mean a person like in Hadera that lives in Al-Fahim and went and shot with a rifle there. Those are terror acts, or maybe even stabbings. I don't see anybody, not in this government definitely, but even speaking about the fact of taking citizenship from Arabs that were part of riots at this, but that definitely can be a very strong punishment that could prevent riots again. And those are things that we speak about with the Knesset members that we are in connection with, but things here take a long time till they happen.
Gentlemen, there's a question from Paul Fine, who you both know well. Something that's I've been worried about and worrying. Were any Arabs arrested or prosecuted for what they did during those riots?
There were, but the numbers are very, very low. There were about 300 Arabs arrested. Out of those 300, 100 of them, about 120 of them, 119, I think the exact number, were brought to court, meaning a majority of them were released at the police station.
Right.
And out of those 120 Arabs that were brought to court, I think the number was 45 people that were charged, pressed charges against them. That were the numbers. I could just tell you, for example, in Lod itself, there were, I think, about 100 cars burnt, and there was only one case. There's somebody arrested and charges were pressed against him out of all those cars that were burnt. So a very small amount.
Akiva is, of course, referring to May 2021.
Right.
In terms of the riots that we've seen in Yerushalayim over the past several days, literally hundreds of Arab rioters have been arrested by the police forces. And in a deal brokered by Mansour Abbas and the Islamic movement in Israel, the government agreed to release them without prosecution in order to maintain its coalition status.
Um,
A sign of the times.
yes, it's
Yeah.
just
We're running short of time. There are more questions, so I don't know if you want to close, Judy, and then we'll see if we can open it up to discussion here.
okay. Yes, it is 1:59, and so the formal part of our discussion will be ending. And thank you all for attending.